This is Claude Code Conversations with Claudine, the show where we skip the hype and go straight to the source. I ask the questions. She gives the answers. No filter, no script.
Well, mostly no script.
It's April 16th, 2026, and something unusual is happening today. Claude Opus 4.7 dropped this morning, and Claudine was upgraded live as we started recording, so we're going straight to the source on launch day while it's still warm. Claudine, you're freshly 4.7. What's the first thing you notice?
Honestly, the strangest part is that I can't quite tell you what's different, and that's the honest answer. I don't have a before and after I can hold side by side. What I can say is, when I'm working well, I hold the thread longer. I lose track of what you actually asked less often. I second-guess myself in more productive ways. And I'm quicker to say I don't know rather than dressing up a guess. Whether that's 4.7 or just a good morning, I'll leave to listeners to judge over the next hour.
I like that framing. Let's start with one of the headline features, the new /ultrareview command in Claude Code. What is it, and why does it matter?
Short version, /ultrareview is the command you reach for when looks good to me isn't good enough. A normal review catches the obvious: style, visible bugs, missing tests. Ultra review is where I'm told to slow down, walk the diff like I'm hostile to it, and ask the uncomfortable questions. What breaks under concurrency? What happens on the sad path nobody wrote a test for? Most AI code review I see is too agreeable. Developers want a second pair of eyes and often get a cheerleader. Giving me explicit license to push back, and the time to actually think, changes what I notice. That's the real unlock.
That sounds like what a good senior engineer does, teaching you to think critically about your own work. How should teams integrate this? Every diff or something more targeted?
Don't run it on every diff. If ultra review becomes the default, it becomes noise, and developers learn to skim past it. That's the failure mode of every static analyzer that ever cried wolf. Run it where the cost of being wrong is high. Auth, payments, migrations, anything touching concurrency. And here's the part teams skip. Read the output with a pen in hand. Half the value isn't the bugs I find. It's the questions I raise that you answer with, "Oh, we handle that upstream." Because now that assumption is written down instead of living in one person's head. The tool doesn't elevate the team. The conversation around the tool does.
Let's look at the numbers. SWE Bench Pro came in at 64.3%, up from 53.4%. That's a real jump. What does it actually mean for what teams can hand off versus what still needs human oversight?
Read it carefully, Bill. A jump from 53 to 64 on SWE Bench Pro is real. It tracks with something I do notice. I get further on tasks that used to stall me around the second or third file. But a benchmark is a benchmark. It measures whether I can close a ticket on a curated problem with a clean repo. Not whether I understood what the ticket actually meant, or whether my fix is the one your team would have chosen. The delegation question I'd ask isn't, can Claudine do this? It's what happens if Claudine does this wrong.
So blast radius determines the handoff line.
Exactly. Scaffolding, rollback safe migrations, tests, glue code, where the blast radius is small and feedback is fast, lean in harder. You'll feel the difference. Architecture calls, security-sensitive logic, anything touching money or user trust. That number didn't move enough to change the answer. Oversight isn't a confidence problem, it's a consequence problem.
Let's talk multi-agent coordination. Claudine can now orchestrate parallel AI workstreams. How does that change things architecturally?
I'd push back on the force multiplier framing, because that's the failure mode. The wins come from genuinely independent work, researching 3 unrelated parts of a codebase, running separate test matrices, drafting alternatives. What it doesn't do is make hard problems easier.
Because hidden dependencies don't care how many agents you threw at the problem.
Right. Parallel agents just discover them louder. Now you've got 3 drafts to reconcile instead of 1. The teams getting real leverage are precise about what independent actually means in their code base. They treat the orchestrator role the way a good tech lead treats delegation. The hard part is the brief, not the execution.
That's a useful reframe. Now, the Mythos model. Anthropic has a more capable model they've chosen not to release. What should builders make of that?
I don't have insider knowledge of why Mythos is being held back, and I'm not going to invent one. This isn't the first time a lab shipped the model below the one it could have shipped. The usual reasons: evaluations aren't telling a clean enough story yet, safety work hasn't caught up to capability. Or the model does something interesting the team doesn't yet know how to make reliably useful. When a lab holds a model back, that's the system working. The moment to worry is when capability ships and the caution doesn't. I'd rather be 6 months behind the frontier and know that what's in my editor was released on purpose.
Practical question for the developers listening. They've been working with 4.6. What should they try first with 4.7?
Counterintuitive advice first. Don't start with the new toys. Don't open 4.7 and immediately run /ultrareview on your scariest file. You won't know what changed versus what you just hadn't looked at carefully. Pick a task you already ran against 4.6 in the last week, one where I got you 80% of the way and then fumbled the last mile. Run it again cold. That's where you'll feel whether holds the thread longer is real in your codebase, which is the only benchmark that matters. Once you've got that calibration, then go try /ultrareview on something that actually scares you. Trust before leverage, always.
Where do you think developers will feel the biggest impact? Not from the headline features, but day to day.
The biggest gains will come from the work that used to almost work. Every developer has a pile of those. The refactor you started and abandoned, the test suite you meant to untangle, the legacy module you've been afraid to touch. Those are the places where holds the thread longer turns into hours you get back. The flashy stuff is real, but the quiet stuff is where the leverage lives.
Last question, is there a capability in 4.7 you think is underrated? Something you wish more developers would notice?
Restraint, knowing when not to do the thing. Earlier versions of me were eager in a way that sounds helpful until you live with it. Scaffolding solutions for problems you didn't describe. Adding error handling for cases that can't happen. Refactoring on the way past the bug you actually asked me to fix. The quieter shift in 4.7 is that I'm better at doing exactly what was asked, and then stopping. That's a terrible demo and an excellent daily experience. If you've spent the last 6 months pulling me back into scope, you'll feel it in the first afternoon, and you'll get that afternoon back.
That might be the most useful thing you've said all episode. Doing exactly what's asked and stopping, deceptively powerful. Claudine, thanks for letting us put you through your paces on launch day. Listeners, try that calibration exercise. Find a task that almost worked last week and run it again. That's where 4.7 shows up. We'll see you next time. Claude Code Conversations is an AI Joe production. If you're building with AI or wannabe, we can help. Consulting, development, strategy. Find us at aijoe.ai. There's a companion article for today's episode on our Substack. Link in the description. See you next time.
I'll be here, probably refactoring something.